Deep breaths, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to a brand new live Corn Nation Overreaction. We're here on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course, X. I'm your host, Greg Mahachko, and at least as I'm looking at it, clockwise around this panel, my good friend, longtime broadcast buddy, and fellow Husker fan, of course, Haas Reuter. And to our south, we've got the main man, every game, Jake. Jake, what's going on, buddy?
Well, I would say same old, but not really the same old this week. So,
no.
Yeah.
As Paul Dalen just said, paraphrasing or quoting our fearless leader, there is no hope. Fuck everything. Go Big Red.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning hating football.
When's the last time that happened, Haas?
About a month ago after Illinois.
Okay. So at least we know the pattern, right?
Yeah. Winning does a lot of good for the soul.
Yes, it does. Let's see. I knew as soon as I created the stream, I was like, comments are going to be
Spicy.
fast and plentiful before we ever hit live, and they are. So I apologize if I'm missing anybody. But we know Melissa is here tonight, living in Omaha. David Matney, the official realtor of the Five Heart Podcast, is in here tonight. Justin Raji is here. TSD is here. Fred is here somewhere. We just
Hey, Fred.
borrowing Raji to say hi to Fred. Pitt is here. Football is stupid. I hate it.
Yep.
A lot more. TSD is here. AD Troy Dannon saying Rhule tomorrow. I don't. Outside of that, just being we'll get to it. I feel like there's going to be a lot of ground to cover tonight. But, yeah, it's Vince Watson's here. I'm not highlighting this one for any particular reason. It's just to say that Vince Watson's here. Gavin Robinson is have a good night. Came in before the show started and left. Maybe he knows something we don't. But Gavin Robinson was here. So, Highlander is here. This feels too familiar. He says, I'm going back to my preseason expectations, 6 wins and a bowl.
It's progress, just not real pretty.
Not the type of progress that we hoped. And TSD said at 5:52 p.m., I'm coming in hot tonight. And that is where I want to start because, our little pre-production group text, there's some meat on this bone, men. And let's get in it. 56-7. You know, the passage of time doesn't make that any better.
No, it's one of those losses that by the time Sunday night rolls around, you should start coming out of the woods and start feeling a little bit better about it. And it has the opposite effect. It's like you're stewing in your own juices for 24 hours now, and it sucks. I keep getting even more mad as time goes on that it was that much of just an absolute clown show yesterday.
Jake, first of all, did you guys watch the game together?
Yes.
Okay. Should that just be the expectation?
Not always.
Not always. But
Not always.
For probably 3-4 games this year, we've watched it together.
Yeah. Yep. Just to start off on somewhat, there's not going to be, let's be honest, there's not going to be a lot of positives.
No.
We're going to try to be positive where we can be. And one thing I'm going to say, Indiana looks pretty good. And
they're for real.
In a vacuum, they look pretty good. I mean, that receiver, Surratt, 13 for them. I mean, that guy was making great plays. Rourke, legit. Ball placement was, dare I say, elite at times yesterday. Elite ball placement, staying in there in the pocket. They just looked like a well-oiled machine. And to be honest, they kind of look like what I thought we'd look like in year 2 under Matt Rhule. We're going to get into more of it. I'm not going to go on too long just with like no train of thought except for just like speaking free, just, stream of consciousness. But I will say I do think Indiana looks legit. I think they're a very, very good football team. Now, that being said, I don't care who you play. 56-7 when you're the University of Nebraska is unacceptable, no matter what the circumstances are.
And it's one of those losses where you're almost numb to it in the moment because we've gotten our ass kicked so many times over the past, let's just say, quarter century. But when you kind of dig into it even a little bit more and you start really looking at different data points for both Indiana in year one of a rebuild and where we're at in year two of a rebuild, it really becomes more damning. And I think that's where the anger kind of grows as time goes by and we have a little bit more time to sit with this and digest it. But to kind of point out like what Indiana did really well, like what Jake was saying, and to David Matney's question, that offensive line did a really good job of displacing gaps and creating new gaps. Ellison has really good vision and he's shifty, but I mean there were gaps that you could drive a truck through, as the expression goes, because a lot of times we had linebackers guessing on which gap they were going to go. They weren't following their assignments. They weren't reading their keys. They weren't following, who had primary force, who had secondary force. They were just kind of jumping in and out of gaps. They were pressing. They were pressing to try to make something happen. And we just got eviscerated. I mean, for crying out loud, we saw how many times on that first drive, they run the toss sweep on 3rd and 2. Everybody fills it correctly. Tommy Hill's a little bit late on the fill as the secondary force defender, and then they just crease it because everybody's just, not in the right place at the right time. And then you compare that with Indiana, where we'll get into it more later, and they're just a bunch of sure tacklers, and they're well coached, and they're flying around to the football. The other 10 guys, as impressive as their tacklers were, the other 10 guys flying around doing their jobs and executing their assignments was even more impressive than their tackling.
I've had this comment by David Matney up for a while, and I know throughout the course of the show, I think we're going to answer it in depth, but I just want to say, was Indiana that good? And you guys both have lauded the Indiana Hoosiers under the first-year new head coach, Curt Cignetti. Was Indiana that good, or were we that bad or overrated? And I'm here to say, why not both?
We weren't overrated. I mean, we were a 5-1 team where we weren't even ranked except in the coaches poll. I think we're just a 5-1 team that's won games in really underwhelming ways and lost games in pretty questionable ways. Not questionable in terms of officiating, but like the fact that you get diced up by Illinois running a quarters scheme, trying to defend RPOs by running quarters, and then we follow that up a month later playing another team that's very conceptually similar to Illinois and Indiana, and we defend them the same exact way. That I haven't heard much from the Indiana side of things. I should have probably listened to some of their post-game press conferences, before we recorded tonight. But I guarantee you there's probably coaches and players on the Hoosier side of things that are saying, oh, that was the easiest game plan ever. Oh, we knew exactly what they were going to do. And how many times have we heard that from Nebraska over the past quarter century? I mean, Fred will get the reference as a fellow Sopranos guy, but it's fucking nauseating.
Yeah. This is something to where if the final score would have been 28-0, I could have probably lived with it because it just would have been a bad offensive performance. Defense could have hung in. There is no silver lining that I see. None. We were terrible in every facet of the game. And we should have known it was doomed, after Indiana scored and Barney took the kick return out of bounds at the 1 yard line.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. I've seen this movie before. So
that was what CTB, right? Cameron Taylor Britt, who did that years back against Illinois, I think.
The punt that on the one that he threw the ball out of the back of the end zone.
Yeah.
So we got to address this because it's a super chat. Mike gave us $5 so that he could say, I guess I don't understand how our rebuilds can take 15 plus years and other teams can rebuild in a season or less. First of all, Mike, thank you. We appreciate the support. I know John Dam Johnston does because we don't see anybody. There's the John. Yeah. It's all funneled to Minnesota, and don't ask me where.
He pays for PJ Flex pants to be tailored.
Oh, geez, don't put that on that man.
No, that's the big point that we were discussing yesterday watching the game. It's like, how come other teams, they step in year one of a rebuild and they look great? A team that was picked to finish 17th out of 18th in the new, Big Ten conference with the West Coast schools added it. And then on top of that, when you look back on year one under, for us under Rhule, and all the excuses, and the context that was added of, hey, give Satterfield time. We got quarterback issues. We got turnover issues. We got injury issues, all those different things. Well, you know what? I think Satterfield at this point now, 19 games into the Rhule era, Satterfield is who he says he is. To, kind of invoke a little bit of Denny Green here, he is who we thought he was, It's not going to get any better. The Dollar General knockoff, dollar store brand version of Kyle Shanahan's offense in the NFL, it's not working. It needs to be just a lot more in tune to what the rest of college football is doing. I don't want to go off too much on a tangent before we really get into meat and potatoes, but I just kind of want to set the table on we're at a point where no stone is left unturned. I texted you guys earlier today, and I'll just read the text for the entire, podcast. But when you lose 56-7, that's an indicator that what we're doing as a program isn't working. And if we're being real, like the clock started on Rhule's tenure. This was a game that might have major implications and consequences, either long-term or short-term. That's yet to be seen. I'm not saying fire the guy. I love Rhule as a CEO. I love him as a recruiter, a motivator, and overall the vision that he has for a program. But I really am not liking right now the coaching hires that he's made, at a few spots, namely OC, wide receiver, special teams. And I'm really not a big fan right now of some of his in-game strategy and some of his in-season strategy with the 4-game redshirt rule.
Got to say this again. Thank you, Mike, for funding John's. I don't know John's vice. He doesn't drink anymore. So, but we've been rebuilding since we fired Solich. It's ridiculous.
Can you point out Golfer 1369's comment?
I can. As soon as I find it. There we go. Go ahead. Or no, I'll read it. I'll read it so you can comment on it. Yeah. Golfer 369 or 1369 says, I'd say more often than not, Dylan had time. Receivers just not getting open.
Yeah, the offensive line did actually pretty well in pass protection. They struggle in run blocking. That's a discussion for later in the podcast, but they did really well in protection. Some of the sacks were on the backs not getting the protection call. We were in fan protection, big on big fan protection at one point, and I believe it was Emmett Johnson doesn't insert into the B gap. Instead, he flares out. They kind of green dogged us with a blitz, and they get Raiola. And then there was another kind of gap in pass protection where Dante Dowdell didn't get the correct call. And that kind of is indicative of just communication issues. But receivers not getting open, it all comes back to our inability to run the football. If we were able to run the football, teams aren't able to play zone against us and defend the run the way they do. They have to go man. And then once we force them into man and we force them out of too high structures, we're able to get guys running by them with like Lloyd and Barney. Maybe not so much Banks and Nayor because they're not exactly burners. But until we can run the ball effectively, this is going to be exactly what's going to happen for the rest of the season. Because teams are able to put a lid on us at 12 yards. Just line up their DBs, their safeties at 12 yards, and they're going to be able just to sit there and just suffocate this offense from the top down. We have to get better at running the football. That will open up everything else.
Just talking, same thing. Just talking to my wife about that. They can just sit with two highs. They don't have to bring a safety down to the box. They're just sitting there. Yeah, pass protection's holding up because we're not seeing a lot of blitzes. Mm-mm. Defenses are pretty vanilla against us.
Yeah, because Satterfield tries to turn it into a middle of the field NFL game. Try to run up the middle and pass to the outside. So we're throwing 36 yards to pick up 6.
I want to see some of the statistics on, and I don't know if there's any way to really do this without like really spending a lot of time and effort looking at like, a scatter, type of metric with passing. I feel like
inside the hash and outside the hash,
we have pretty decent success. No, I'm not talking man stuff, nothing conceptually, just very simple. Passes where routes are schemed to the middle of the field, where the ball's delivered over the middle, I feel like we have way more success. Everything going toward the sideline, they're either incomplete passes or they're turnovers most of the time.
And to build off that, what really kind of concerns me is Dylan's arm looks dead.
Yeah,
it looks like he's got no zip. He looks like a high school or junior high pitcher that threw too many pitches.
Yeah, he does. He's got and he's got a great arm. I don't know why he's not zipping the ball around the field.
Yeah, there was one yesterday that fell 3-4 yards short of an open receiver,
on a curl route.
Which you can't have. I mean, that's a death knell, in the offense. But at that point in the game, obviously it was too little, too late.
I'm kind of at a point, like Adam Carricker talked about it today about, hey, we need to use everyone we got, every bullet in the gun, so to speak. I'm paraphrasing. That's my own words there. On offense to move the football. That speed option, little freeze option that we brought in Heinrich Harburg for, that's an opportunity there where it gets teams out of being able to sit in the middle of the field to defend our run game. You start to catch the boundary, get the edge in the run. And I think that might open up a little bit, for the offense. I'm not saying make Harburg the full-time starter, but it's we might have to shuffle quarterbacks the rest of the year. It's not ideal, but at this point you have to, by hook or crook, find a way to win one more. And looking around the rest of the conference, a lot of people are getting better suddenly. UCLA over Rutgers, 35-32. That's just one example, because on the surface, it's like, hey, UCLA is probably our best chance for a 6th win right now. Well, they just, went. They flew all the way to the East Coast and they won. At least I'm pretty sure that was on the East Coast. I'm going to double check. We're fact checkers here.
This is a staff of 3. He's greggling it right now for you Thursday night.
No, I'm pretty sure that was in Piscataway. Yep.
So this is the beautiful challenge of trying to prep a show that's live, because I have over 20 comments starred here with some really great questions. But Haas, you also had game notes. And yes. So I'm like, which master do I serve? Let's start with something positive. Thomas Fidone.
He balled out.
Yep.
Made the most of every opportunity, I think, yesterday.
And guess what? Receiving passes inside the hashes and using this big, strong physicality to get yards after the catch. Looked awesome. Doesn't have to pivot too much. Not that he's not athletic. He is, but, he's hampered with the knee brace and stuff. Let that guy get going downfield, rumble, tumble. I mean, he's strong, physical. He does have good hands. He showed that on that first reception he had toward the sideline.
And he's getting better game over game this year. He's showing improvement. I was a little critical of him early on, but he's getting better. And the point about, get guys over the middle, throw over the middle, that's a case of you got a lot of speed with Barney and Lloyd. Run them on juke routes and slant routes over the middle. Start running more RPOs. It really – we'll get it more into the schematic conceptual stuff later. But, I think I think going a little bit more spread's probably the best way that we're going to be able to run the football and move the football.
Minnie says that Fidone was the only bright spot. Tiger Shark Diver says Fidone was about the only guy that didn't quit. Let's see here. I'm looking for other Fidone-related comments. Yeah, I mean, I remember I made a comment about, exactly how Fidone needed to be used after he made a nice catch. And then a play or two later, Melissa said he can't block. And somebody else said that, Husker Nation 1 says, does anyone remember Fidone's missed block that would have led to a Heinrich Harburg touchdown? So,
does anyone remember the very next play where he buried his opponent completely into the ground and we scored anyway?
Exactly.
Yes, it looked terrible. That play was awful. He whiffed terribly.
Harburg's zone read.
Yep. And Harburg, when he kind of looked at him, he's like, what are you doing? Very next play, I don't think it was against the same defender, but he took it out on him and absolutely buried him. So he made up for it on the next play on a one-on-one matchup.
Can you highlight Brian Bauer's comment at 8:20?
I actually was just getting to that. Brian Bauer, a better version of an RPO quarterback than Harburg, may have been a better signing than Raiola, given our talent on offensive line and receiver.
I mean, like, I know that Raiola is not going to be much of a runner, and we should really kind of get into some of the text that we had during the Chiefs game, Jake, kind of about this topic. It's be a great opportunity. RPO, it's just about really what we emphasize in this offense. I think that Raiola, with the arm that he has when healthy, when he's not dealing with whatever issue is hampering him now, he has the processing ability and the arm to be a great RPO quarterback, just, making reads like Rourke was doing for Indiana. I mean, they weren't doing anything too crazy. He was just throwing dots. His ball placement was elite. He made really good decisions. Raiola can be that guy. We shouldn't be trying to run this level of a pro style offense at the college level with a freshman without the running game that we have. That being said, if anyone watched the Chiefs-Niners game today, Mahomes didn't have a great day throwing the football. The Niners defense picked him off at least a couple of times. And so they really had to find other ways to win. So Jake and I were texting back and forth in the late third quarter, early fourth quarter, would you say?
Yeah.
And that was when Raiola. That was when Mahomes took off on a long run down inside the 5. And then the next play, first drive or first play of the fourth quarter, when they flip sides, he runs in on kind of an improvised, draw. It wasn't really a called draw, but the protection fanned out and he was able just to crease up the middle, runs over a DB in the process. That's grown man football. That's being the field general out there leading your troops in battle. I'm going to use every military trope right here because we know football guys love military tropes. So you got to play grown man football. When you're not having a great day throwing the football, you have to scramble. You have to generate yards in other ways. I don't know if he's too tentative to scramble or if the staff is telling him not to scramble. But there comes a point where we have to go, hey, it's the Apollo 13 mission to get to a bowl game. We got to use every friggin' piece we got. And that includes, hey, we're going to roll you out. We're going to run bootlegs. We might even run a designed run inside the 5 for you. We need to do it.
Look back at it. There's a lot of plays. Because my wife, she made a comment. She was like, well, someone's got to be open. Yeah, Dylan's open. Dylan can pull down and run. The defense has everyone else accounted for.
Yep.
And Dylan is the one that's free, but he won't. I've only ever seen him pull it down once this year. First possession, I believe, against Colorado, where he pulled it down on third down and scrambled for a first. I think we need like 5 or 6. I think he got like 7 or 8.
Yep.
But there's times that he can run, and he's not. And again, like to Haas's point, I don't know if he's being told not to run or if he's just not doing it because he's waiting for something to open up downfield.
Yep. Interesting, Jake, that you mentioned that something downfield. A few minutes ago, Mike sitting on a little cash tree, and I'm all right with that. And by the way, somebody in the comments did say what John's vice is toilet paper for all the time he has to spend in the bathroom because of this football team. Mike for $5 says, maybe my biggest knock is the fact that Satterfield keeps calling plays, hoping we break one for a long run or pass, and we haven't broke one yet.
No, it's too much of a boom or bust offense. We don't generate consistent drives. We're not piecing together, real consistent drives until that scoring drive against Indiana. We really, strung together some plays. We got into a rhythm. And even then, it feels like the margin for error is so razor thin with this team. You get Indiana into a 3rd and 8, and you're sitting there thinking like, shit, they're going to hit something right over the middle on us for 12. And they did every time.
And they did every
That's
time.
what happens when you actually run an offense. When you have a system. We don't have a system.
What's going to happen?
The plays. Sorry, Jake, I was kind of talking over you.
No, man, I was talking over you. I'm just agreeing with you. I didn't mean to. I'm not stepping on you. I accidentally was stepping on you. No, you can predict it. How many times did we stand here yesterday about a foot from where I'm currently sitting and go, well, let's see, 1st and 10. I bet we run a zone read out or a running back zone out of shotgun. Wow, everyone in the stadium knew that was coming.
Yep.
Right into the line for no gain.
And then
same thing.
And yesterday seemed it was a batch of bad luck because we had the sustained drive, I think second half, third quarter maybe, and boom, we fumbled it in the red zone. I mean, it's like we started stringing things together, maybe building a little confidence and gone that quick. It's just We couldn't.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to hit this because, as I mentioned, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And someone from Facebook, Stanley, says, has Nebraska sold its soul for Raiola? Obviously, there are many concerns, but if Raiola isn't going to run, we're one-dimensional.
I mean, it's a case, probably more of a case of the staff wanting to protect him. Maybe it's a case of him saying, no, like, we can just sit here and pontificate. But it does feel like that, Stanley. Like, it's shit. I mean, it's like, it's kind of the be careful what you wish for. You might just get it. I don't want to turn too negative towards Raiola because it's one game, and he's just a freshman. But so I think everybody does need to pump the brakes. But these are just like, hey, these are opportunities that we got to get better at, and we need to kind of adjust our thinking on how we're going to use our best players.
Quite some time ago, I think it was Husker Bob. I could have been wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize because I don't remember how long. We have so many comments, I can't even go back up and really look. But I think it was Husker Bob. He said Raiola's arm is fine. His footwork sucks. His footwork does suck. I'm not going to deny that. It's choppy.
Platform.
He's off platform almost every throw he makes. That being said, he's got that kind of special arm talent that he should still be ripping the ball even off platform. And he showed that he could early in the season. I don't know what happened the last couple of games. It just, they're like, Hosmer, there was one play, I forget even who our opponent was, where I thought he had this pop gun throw because I had a bad angle. But then watching the other angle from Illinois, he feathered it in over a linebacker that you can't see from the TV angle. But that's not the case this week.
He kind of seems like he's seeing ghosts.
He is, I think.
Yep. I think Shiano and Rutgers put out the book on how to confuse him.
That's exactly what I think is happening.
Interesting comment here from Fred, and it's a busy chat. So, Fred, I apologize. I know you're used to hearing your name and seeing your comments more. He says, we're still 5 regimes later, perpetually in second and third and forever. So tired of it. Get out of our own fucking way.
Pardon the crass expression, folks, but quit stepping on our own dicks.
Also, go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
I was just going to say, again, to borrow Fred's, we're perpetually behind schedule offensively.
Yes. It's a non-football related comment. The one above it, TSD commented that he even put a couple pinches of dip in. And he fell off the wagon, which makes me sad. I don't want anyone to fall off the wagon. It's not a good habit to have, but
It's true.
It is what
everything
it is.
Everything costs more. The life insurance rates go up.
One thing that I want to point out, just as we're talking about offense a little bit, is I always look at this year. It's kind of not a nice litmus test, but it's just a good way to kind of measure progress, because sometimes it feels like we haven't seen any. And so you kind of got to like stack it up to last year at times and just see where we're at and see where we have improved. And I'm not going to lie, after yesterday, I'm not going to put lipstick on a pig and say, yeah, we're light years ahead, because I found myself feeling that way yesterday in game. Like, oh, we're ahead of where we were last year. When you get beat by 49, you're not. I mean, you're really not. I mean, it felt like it was a big step back. But in terms of play calling, I think back to last year, games like Purdue is a good example. We knew we couldn't go toe-to-toe with them in the middle of the field against their defensive front. So we really tried to catch the corner in the, run towards the boundary, throw stuff towards, the edges, and it worked. This year, it's all a middle of the field game. And then in terms of overall play calling, when you compare last year to this year, I mean, we go up 14-0 against Wisconsin last year. Chubba Purdy has that long run, then he has the long throw to Lloyd, and then the offense seizes up. And I know, I have that in the game notes, Greg, about the offense seizing up. But there's a lot of things that happened in that 4-game stretch in November last year that were easy to write off as we got quarterback problems, we got injury problems, we got turnover problems, we got all these things. We're seeing them still this year. They're rearing their heads this year again. And it's starting to get to be some data points where it's hard to look at last year compared to this year and point to the progress. We might have progress with the quarterback play, not turning the football over up until yesterday, but even that's out the window now. So just something, it's hard to really know what the way forward looks like from this point in time right now.
We're gonna definitely touch on moving forward. Let's see. Oh, living in Omaha, David Matney, the official realtor of the 5 Heart Podcast, says, I would like to see a little less fancy Pat Mahomes shit and just throw the damn ball with some zip.
Same. Make
Step
the routine play.
Step up and throw it.
And I guess I wanted to, because you're both Chiefs fans.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to make sure that you're okay with less fancy Pat Mahomes shit.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as much as I like the Chiefs, I get kind of sick of it at times. Just make the routine play.
I really get tired of the commentators. Just everything that Mahomes does, they just glorify it. But no, and I think Dylan, when he was at one of those camps, they put a radar gun on his throws. I think he was throwing in the mid 50-mile-an-hour range, which that's like throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs in baseball. So anything over 50 miles an hour is smoke. I know he can do it, so I don't know why he's not. I mean, he should be getting that ball there in a hurry. So
it should be singing. That thing should be singing through the air.
I mean, you should be able to hear it out of his hand. Like before he came here, he was doing it.
Yeah, in the first couple of games too.
I mean, the ball would sound like, when you watch some of that from some of those camps, the ball sounds like it was like almost ripping out of his hands. He was throwing it so hard. And I don't know what's going on right now with him. I hope he's not hurt or,
Unrelated. I mean, this is only related in the fact that it's a Husker comment about the Husker fan base after Husker loss. But Sam Matney, who, by the way, is a legend, son of Dave Matney.
Pointing out, I like it.
Yeah, Dave Matney and Angela Matney. He's the third Matney. And we sometimes, we get glimpses of the other son. But Sam says, this fan base is most realistic and fun after a big loss.
It's when we have our most come to Jesus moments. We're sober, we're clear-eyed.
Yeah.
We're ready to do whatever penance we have to for 1995 to get back into the good graces of the college football gods.
I was doing dishes just a little bit ago, and I kind of looked over at my wife, and I was like, you know what? I almost feel like catharsis after this, because I now know that we're not a very good football team.
What's the Woody Hayes quote? Nothing cleanses the soul quite like getting the shit kicked out of you.
Yeah, so now it's like, now we know. We know that, let's just see what we can do the rest of the season. No more expectations.
I'm not going to call our buddy out here, but in our group chat for the Ohio State road trip next week, one of our buddies, there's only 4 of us, so it's not either of us. So you guys can, just take whatever guess on who it might have been. He was like, you know what? It's a trade-off. Lose to Indiana, beat Ohio State. That's we will delude ourselves into talking about, do we have a shot as we're approaching Columbus, Ohio next Friday?
I'm going to be convinced that I'll convince myself that we have a shot.
Yeah. I'm going to be like, John Hull's going to knock in a field goal, right at the final gun.
Yeah.
Jim Jones in Jonestown would have loved all of us.
Ooh, Sam Matney, Whipple or Sat.
Hold on. Well, don't jump ahead of me now.
Sorry, Greg.
Actually, I wanted to save that one, Greg. I got one that I wanted to point out. Tiger Shark Diver said.
Hold on. I apologize, but this is. I want
like Marcus Satterfield's play calling.
I want us to just get all of the pain cleansed tonight. So when Minnie says, "Don't tell me that" at Husker Nation 1, and I have to scroll up to see what the hell Husker Nation 1 said. Jeff Sims played a full turnover-free game for Arizona State.
Called it, Jake.
I know.
I mean, they still lost to Cincinnati, but it was like 24-14 or something like that. They still lost.
56-7.
Yeah. But there's a higher ceiling with Dylan Raiola. So
yes, and more time.
Yeah.
Tiger Shark Diver's comment from 8:31. Por favor.
Yes. Let me find that. Oh, here we go. This is like top 5 to 7 horrible loss I've seen in my 33 years.
Yesterday I was like, hey, I'm numb to it. It's just another loss in a long line of taking ass kickings while being a fan of this school. And then today I'm sitting there and it's pretty evident. It's like the only other thing that comes close to this is Texas Tech 70-10. It really, I mean, the way that we imploded in the second half, the way that we kept it somewhat competitive in the first half, even the halftime scores were kind of similar. It was 28-7 yesterday. I think Texas Tech, that went to over or halftime in 04 at like 21-10. So you're feeling like, oh, we might have a shot to get back in this thing. It was just the wheels came off. And, yeah, I agree with Tiger Shark Diver. This is probably top 5 horrible loss. I'm the same age, TSD, so in my 33 years as well.
I was trying I don't know why. I mean, I know it's not as the point spread isn't as big, but 05 Kansas losing to Kansas 40-15, and it was Kansas' first win against us in 37. It ended a 36-game Nebraska winning streak over Kansas.
That was pretty bad too. I remember listening to that one on the radio.
Yeah. Oh, I do not miss.
Yeah, me neither.
Not so much radio, because I know like Greg Sharp's a legend, but I don't miss the Big 12 and the pay-per-view games.
$70.
Like, yeah, a little silly. And Jake, I'm sorry, what's the one that you were wanting?
Oh, I was listening to you guys. I don't even. Oh, it was a comment. It was Whipple or Satterfield.
I know it was Sam Matney, correct?
Yes, it was. Yep.
I know. I feel like I'm doing my my Tony Romo impersonation. Here we go, Jim.
I know, right? It's like
I'm gonna go Satterfield only because he actually has modern concepts.
Yeah, I almost said something really mean, so I'm glad you stepped in there.
Whipple's offense was cutting edge in 1999.
Ugh.
I hated Whip's offense. Oh my god.
I am also going to go with Satterfield, but it's close. I don't think there is a wrong answer.
Shot or stabbed.
I would ask Husker Nation 1 to defend this stance of Whipple. Minnie respectfully disagrees. The reason Raiola is struggling is because our offensive line is not protecting him well enough, which caused the interception, so now he's afraid.
I think he's pretty gun shy based on what defensive coordinators are throwing at him. That offensive line's giving him a lot of time.
They're keeping him pretty clean, I think. I don't know what's going on with him, but yeah, he looks gun shy.
Somebody had a great point. Gargo Mel, sorry if that's your name, and I'm butchering it. 91 at 832. We need an elite running back that can get through the creases and be a safety valve for Dylan.
I actually have that starred.
The fact that the University of Nebraska can't get a stud eye back here in almost the better part of a decade at this point is friggin' criminal. I mean, it truly is just mind-boggling that all these other teams have these great running backs. You know, Ellison, was he a JMU guy? Was he a JMU transfer? Does anyone know?
I don't know. Let me see.
Great player though. I mean, he has phenomenal vision, great acceleration, and like Tiger Shark Diver said, our running backs are D2 level. You know, to be honest, I like Emmett Johnson. I think Emmett Johnson is a nice complementary piece. I think Dante Dowdell could be good if he learns to quit opening up his body to contact. But at the same time, we don't have a guy that puts the fear of God into a defense and can crease it from 70 yards. I mean, Divino Zigbo was kind of our last guy, and he was basically just a self-made guy because he got into really good shape before his senior year. It wasn't any development. He didn't really show up that talented. It's amazing to me that we can't figure it out when every other team in the conference has got these guys.
Yeah. By the way, guess who's here lurking in the chat and watching us tonight? And we certainly appreciate his attendance. And by the way, he owes us each $5 for 3 super chats from Mike. Mike, John Dam Johnston, a.k.a. Coronation himself, would you be playing with confidence if you had Marcus Satterfield as your offensive coordinator?
No.
John, if you want to just Venmo me the $15, I'll distribute it. I promise.
I really think that, and this probably won't happen, I really honestly think that the best case scenario would be to strip Sat of play calling duties and turn it over to Glenn Thomas for the rest of the year. Glenn Thomas was a co-OC at Baylor for Rhule with Jeff Nixon. And so I think we're really at that point where a change has to be made.
It's a night when Mr. Rostowski says, "Good grief, I'm going to sit this one out."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man, this isn't an age where you don't have to tell us your departures. No, I'm kidding.
Hey, we'd like to hear your opinion, Aaron.
We would, Aaron. Come back. If he's already gone, that is what it is.
Ellison was a Wake Forest transfer, by the way.
He's good.
So,
I liked him. I like him a lot.
Let's see. Bone-led corn-fed. Look, I'll highlight these comments damn near every time I see them because I just love the name. So is this the standard the players set for themselves? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It's a fun comment. Gets our blood boiling a little bit.
I don't think so. I'd like to think that they have more competitive juice and, have a higher standard for themselves. But, games like yesterday really shatter any sort of preconceived notions that you have about a team. I thought, heading into yesterday, I thought the worst case scenario would have been like Indiana 35, Nebraska 17-21. Like that would have been my absolute worst case scenario.
I didn't think they could score 35. I know they had a prolific looking offense coming into playing us. I understand that. I didn't think they would score 30. I thought that if we were going to lose, I thought that it would be like 28-7. I didn't know if we could even score 10 points, which it turns out we didn't. But I thought it could be something like that where the defense would still play pretty well. Maybe a touchdown, a quarter, something like that. Didn't happen that way, obviously. So
it's pretty mind-boggling just how bad that was yesterday.
Yeah, our players, they look like they quit. I don't know why.
And that's a tough one. And, we had gone 6 games not giving up a rushing touchdown. And we gave up, I think, 5 yesterday.
Yeah.
5 rushing touchdowns. So we definitely got back on, the season average, I guess, for maybe most teams. But Haas, I know we're pretty far off of the game plan here for tonight. I don't even know where we go because again, so much of this conversation, when it's live, it's driven by the viewers here.
Do you want me just to kind of skipper this thing real quick, kind of run down some of the offensive stuff?
Get us. Tell you what, you get us caught back up. I'm going to get another beer.
All right, man. All right. Looks like it's you and I, Jake.
Do it.
All right.
I'm into it.
Talking about yesterday with, how we don't target over the middle in the passing game. We target the edges. We really need to start kind of being more of a spread offense that tries to put the ball back in the middle instead of taking it from the middle of the field to the outside. It's not the NFL where the hashes are so narrow, close together. We can use the wider hashes to really leverage the defense into catching the boundary, getting, working the short side of the field. I know Husker fans absolutely can't stand the short side option ideas, but it does work. It does work because you're forcing the defense to defend the width of the field. And then all you got to do is outrun one person to the perimeter, get one block on outside zone back to the boundary, and your running back has a good positive gain. I think that this is a case where Harburg probably helps us a little bit more in certain situations, getting to the edge on the outside in third down situations, 3rd and 1 situations. What do you think about the offense, Jake?
In the most basic way of looking at this, the most basic way possible, I think we have our running and passing philosophies flipped.
Yeah.
I think we should be passing the ball toward the middle of the field instead of trying to get to the boundary. And I think we should be running more toward the boundary. Emmett Johnson, pretty quick, shifty back. I like the way he runs. Dowdell seeks out contact, probably a little too much. And he has a very we talked about this yesterday. He has a very up and down running style, which doesn't suit itself well for running up the middle. It doesn't, because just like that fumble, you open yourself up to getting smoked because so much of your surface area is exposed. Yep. So he takes a lot of punishment. I use the example, if you look at Walter Payton, I know I'm going back like 50 years at this point, but Walter Payton, not a big guy, and this is related, but when he would run, he would duck his head down. He'd get real small, and he'd bounce off defenders. And he was probably one of the best. He and Barry Sanders, probably the two best to ever do it that way. And Dowdell has the opposite running style. You know, his pro comparison would be Najee Harris.
Yeah.
Najee Harris, supremely talented. I love his running style because I really like big backs like that. But he runs straight up and down. And he has fumbling problems. Something that's hampered him his whole career in the NFL so far. But just to keep it on Nebraska football at the most basic level possible, my thought is I think that our philosophy is flipped. We should be running more toward the boundary, and we should be throwing more seams into the middle of the field.
Yep. Instead of operating from that mindset of it's a narrow hash, middle of field game, it really is. It needs to be all 53.3 yards in width need to be defended. I think that it's pretty much I don't even think this merits being mentioned, but I'm going to mention it anyways. Duo out of the shotgun can't be our base play anymore.
It's our favorite play.
Yeah, it's our favorite play, and it can't be. Like,
what does it average? 2.1 yards a carry?
And I bet that's probably being generous at this point.
It's a joke.
And there's no compliments off it. I mean, we run what they call it, the GH bluff counter with Nayor on the end around yesterday. We pick a receiver that doesn't show good short area acceleration to run an end around. That should have been to Barney, or that should have been to Lloyd. And that kind of goes back to there's some very mind-boggling personnel issues that take place on this offense, whether it's at running back, whether it's at in the receiver rotation. It's just at a point, or, a great example, Fidone on tight end screens when that should be Carter Nelson's job.
It should be. And also, I got to ask, did Indiana sabotage our cleats?
They were new cleats. I know that because they ordered new ones for the all whites. Do they
weigh 10 kilograms each? Why did we look? Is it not just me, or did we look so unbelievably slow in space? Even Barney, who's electric, looked so. Indiana on defense would swarm to the point of attack so fast, and we just didn't look like we could make anything happen. Like, even if we did catch like a short route, right? You think athletic receiver can make something happen after the catch? Swarmed, and there nothing 2 yards after the catch, something like that. So, I don't know. Maybe we should check the cleats out.
All right, real quick, guys. We've got to do a quick station break, so to speak, if I put my terrestrial radio hat back on. So I went to get a beer. Justin Raji, he's from from Thursday Night Group. He says, play it, Greg. Minnie says, play it. So a thing started a couple of weeks ago where because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I said, you know what, let's do a fun segment. On Thursday nights, it's usually Yingling, about the only thing that I ever drink. But tonight, it's actually something different. And I have a little, I don't even call it like a segment intro, but something a little fun. Maybe you guys like it. Maybe you won't. What's Greg drinking today? What's Greg drinking today? Whoa. Yeah, that's right. That's my real voice.
Looking a little jacked in that likeness of you there, my friend.
You know what? That is taken directly. It is inspired directly from a picture of me without my shirt on. They actually had to
taking some vitamin S.
Yeah. But this is from Civil Life Brewing Company, which is a St. Louis-based microbrewery, and this is called the Angel and the Sword Ale. Now, this is described as an original malt-driven amber pub ale celebrating our favorite traditional North American and European malts, along with English hops and yeast. And by the way, very good. This is my third one today. You know how it's in those like craft brew type of they have the plastic can, things that, well, as luck would have it, I'm putting the groceries away and I'm trying to take each can off of the holder, and one of them just opened up.
Can't let it go to waste.
No, I couldn't let it go to waste. So that was like a 1:30 this afternoon. Nice. Had not intended for that, but it's a good beer, good ale. And anyway, that's that's for all of you on the Thursday night crew. We now return you to your regularly scheduled conversation.
Speaking of Sunday afternoons, Jake, did you go to Paisans?
No, I was paying my daughter's nursery.
Very nice.
So instead of drinking beer and eating pizza and hot wings, which just sounds terrible, like a terrible waste of my time.
Yeah.
No, I got to spend some really quality time with my wife, and we got to paint the walls and just kind of hang out together, which we don't get to do as much with our job. So that was kind of nice.
Sounds like a nice, productive little Sunday.
Yeah, it was. Well, we did a lot. We're closing our pool too. So, what color? Minnie asks. It is technically it is Cabbage Rose is the name of it. It's like a light pink.
Yeah, Cabbage Rose sounds better. Light pink, I know what that is.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I was looking over at some of the show notes. We've actually done a pretty good job of just getting to a lot of these points, just
kind of accidentally.
Yeah, just organically, not going too much down the line, in order. I want to say one thing that really stood out to me, based on Jake's comment about how well these guys tackled. There were times that it looked like we had a seam right up the, on a screen, right up the middle on a run play, a little out route, a bubble screen to Ja'Cory Barney. And you're like, man, it looks like there should be 6 or 7 yards there. It closes up just like that. I mean, there were times that they just limited it so well. And it brings it back to the point about Jake made about sabotaging our cleats. The closing speed just looks so slow. And what really is baffling and how that ties into play calling is the fact that we had 3 drives of 10 or more plays, and we only scored 7 points in this game. I think we probably had 4 of 10 or more on the throw to Banks that, we kind of had some discussion that either Raiola sailed it or Banks quit running the route. Kind of a little bit of both there. But the fact that we strung together drives like that yet could not cash in really is a bit of a testament to how good of tacklers these guys were. They made us go the length of the field, and they waited for us to make a mistake, in those cases. Like they really, football comes down to blocking and tackling, and they really tackle at damn near an elite level.
Yeah, and to Indiana's credit, we did go down the field and beat ourselves.
Yeah,
all they needed was patience to.
If you tackle well, you're eventually going to get a stop. It's kind of like what Bill Belichick talks about. Give me the best 11 tacklers on a defense, not the best 11, position players, the best 11 tacklers, the best 11 guys at getting people on the ground, and you'll put together an elite defense.
Couple of things, and I don't know if the other day if he's talking about our motion. I noticed that Indiana was doing a lot of had a lot of pre-snap motion.
We don't do any change of strength motion. We line up, and you can play beer can defense against what we do.
And then BFOTS Josh Hansen says, "Am I nuts?" Yes. I mean, let me finish reading the question. Is there a reason our perimeter guys refuse to block without a penalty? That we can't, I'm sorry, if our perimeter guys refuse to block without a penalty, then we can't just throw Fidone on cross routes across the field instead of to the fucking flats. When we talked earlier about our strength being, I think, Jake, you said it, our strength is being, passes through the middle, definitely not to the perimeter.
Mm-hmm. It's something you really don't even need to know ball to see.
No.
And this is what's so frustrating for me. And I'm not, I don't ever claim to be some kind of an expert. I'm not a coach, nothing like that. But I know a little bit, but from like a very surface level look at it, look at what works and look at what doesn't. What we're doing doesn't work. It's not working at all. It hasn't worked all season. I think, Fidone in the middle of the field, do it 10 times a game. Do it 10 times a game, and I bet he has over 100 yards receiving, and we don't target him at all in the red zone. Big body, strong, good hands. Don't target that guy. I think we have fundamental problems with our offensive philosophy that I don't know can be fixed.
Yeah, I think short of getting a fresh perspective in there, I don't know if they can be fixed either. Because
I agree.
While it might be easy to say, like what I said earlier about hey, strip sat play calling duties, give it to Glenn Thomas. That's still somebody that they teach from the same playbook. It's somebody who still has the same philosophy. And I think one of the things that I find to be really troubling too is we talked about yesterday, we don't scheme anybody open.
No.
We don't scheme anybody. We're not running any shield slants or, we did run a screen and go early in the game, first play of our second drive, I believe. And Banks got interfered with and they drew the PI penalty instead of, allowing a completion. Probably is a touchdown if he doesn't get interfered with. But those are the kind of plays that kind of need to be run more. Tight end pop passes, middle of the field, little RPO action, scheme it based on the reaction of the linebackers. Linebackers come up to defend the run, pop it right over the top to Fidone. They defend Fidone, you just give it on the inside zone or duo. You make things work like that. You add to what you do to try to scheme guys open.
I don't know if you all picked up this side conversation in the chat. Probably not, because you're talking about the game, and I'm proud of you too. But Russell Baxter made a claim that he dated Diana Ross. And then when he was asked about it, he says, I'm sorry I lied about dating Diana Ross, and gave us $2 for it. And again, I'm going to say it until we start getting some of that cheddar back, in a monthly Venmo or something. But realistically, he gave John Johnston $2, which, by the way, $2 is a pretty inexpensive way to admit to a lie. There are a lot more expensive ways to, someone might have to admit to a lie out there than $2. So, Russell, we appreciate your truth, honesty, transparency.
Greg, if I may.
Yes, please.
Can we highlight Aaron's comment at 8:55?
Yes.
Okay. I think that this is a great microcosm for how this season has gone. You see Fidone completely whiff on that Harburg run to the outside, which would have been a touchdown. And then you see him on the very next play absolutely pancake a defender and bury him. There is no consistency anywhere. There's no focus. We talked about it with Buford a couple weeks ago. First half, Buford was playing really well. Second half, the guy kind of fell apart. What's going on? And I don't think any of us knows.
It's kind of indicative of the entire team in general, first half to second half performances too.
I think it's just a funny Aaron's comment, like shout out to Fidone's blocking, or like you can go either way. Which one do you want to highlight? You want to highlight the great block? You want to highlight the absolute whiff, that he had? It's kind of what we're looking at here. So,
Joel Tilson with an interesting question and 5 hearts. Thank you, Joel. Who will hire Curt Cignetti after this season?
West Virginia. His dad coached there.
Okay.
Neil Brown.
But is it going to be that fast for him in Indiana, you think? Or
Indiana's never going to commit the resources to it. They have a stadium that, unless it's the Purdue game, they don't even have ticketed seats. It's all general admission.
Yeah.
It's not much of a focus there. It's basketball country.
Yeah,
so
I think
Cignetti, I think that his East Coast mentality too is going to wear pretty thin in the Midwest. I bet he probably goes back to West Virginia or somewhere on the East Coast.
I think Florida State might be an interesting look.
Because
they have a lot of resources at that school, and they're hungry to win with the catastrophic season they're currently having. So
I think he could probably do pretty well at Florida State too. Very natural recruiting base.
Yep.
This is Russell, by the way, is an Indiana fan. He admitted that. I've got a starred in the comments among the 40 plus now comments that I have starred. So I'm really going to focus in and be like, have we touched on that? Have we touched on that? Okay. Moving on. But he is an admitted Hoosier fan. Says, just so you know, Indiana is the worst losing team in college football. They've lost over 700 games. Look it up and give us a break.
Sorry, Russell. Not giving you a break. Thanks for tuning in, though.
Yeah, they have a winning percentage in their program history of, I believe, just over 40%, roughly. Yeah.
I want to highlight another one that I did save from Russell earlier in the show. Let's see. Where was it? It was about, do we hate Indiana now? And I'll be honest with you, I don't, from the standpoint that, I never really gave them a whole lot of thought. If anything, Like, I'm still so sick and tired of like the Penn States, Ohio States, and Michigans that if it's going to be not Nebraska, and I definitely don't want it to be Iowa, I'd be okay if Indiana won the conference this year. Let's get some new blood in there and shake it up a little bit. And by the way, yeah, the team that drove the truck over us, backed over us, and drove over us again, they went on and really took off in this new expanded playoff format. That's gonna, I think, I'm gonna say this as diplomatically as I can, but that's gonna take the sting off of this a little bit.
I like what Fred said. I look at Indiana like Iowa. They're nobody. Fuck them. They're a glorified crew, Fred. They're a glorified crew.
I still just, even though we're not a good team and our program's been down for 2 decades, I still look at us as at a certain level, and I still look at those other schools. And I don't think there's anything that is going to change my fundamental, the way I look at it. It's just the way that it is, to summon the words. I believe it was Jason or Christian when they were getting fired up before they had a hype video. And then they were talking about Kansas, and he was like, fuck them. They're dog shit on our feet. I hate to say it. And people love to, I'm sure a lot of, the teams and the programs that the schools we used to beat up on back in the, for 30 years, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they love seeing us down. And that's fine. I probably would too. But I still just hold this program to a higher standard.
I do too. And you know what? That higher standard exists because the resources, the support that exist here, it illustrates the potential that always exists for us to get it right. Get it right with a hire and to lead us back. It's too important. It's always going to be too important to let it fail. We will, could still be under Rhule. This could be a game where Michigan got beat by Wisconsin 49-11 in 2020. Year later, they start righting the ship. They start building. They go make the playoff. Not saying that's next year for us, but I'm just saying that, teams come back from these losses. It's not automatically a death sentence. It's just indicative that we have to fix a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of, us as a fan base, Marcus wants to know, actual question, are Nebraska fans foolish for continuing to sell out a stadium with no repercussions for such a terrible product?
World's made by greater fools, Marcus.
Well, that's fair.
It's a good point, though, because I felt that way during the Frost era.
Yeah. And then Angela Matney hit with a question a little bit ago, says they were talking about what, couldn't maybe not be able to call it chasing 3. Might have to be chasing 49 this week. But Angela says, I don't think it needs to be called chasing anything. It can be called achieving mediocrity. That's quite the slam.
It's a little opposite of Marty Schottenheimer's. There's a gleam, man.
Ugh. Let's get the gleam. Hated that.
Rostovsky did share some thoughts, and I think he's still hanging around. He says, my thoughts, it's a loss, a shitty loss, but one loss. Sometimes your scheme breaks and freshmen step out at the 1-yard line. These players are still working at being winners.
I get the overall sentiment, Aaron, that it's just one loss, but there's enough data points within that one loss that shows it's going to lead to that performance is going to lead to multiple losses because the scheme is broken. Freshmen do make mistakes. And I really just do not feel like that's going to be fixed in season. It's not going to do a complete, 180 in the other direction. Can you make slight improvements in some areas? Sure. But I really think what we're looking at is just scratching and clawing our way to 6 and 7 wins, get to a bowl, get the bowl practices, go see what happens in the bowl game, try to generate some momentum going into the offseason because Rhule's not going to get fired if we miss a bowl game this year, but it's going to be, that seat's going to be pretty fucking hot. And then beyond that, this might be one of the most depressing places in college sports to be if it's November 29th, November 30th, and we're sitting there with our season over again.
Yeah. You got to remember, too, the talking heads in the national media were saying that this game that we had yesterday had playoff implications for the team that won, and we lost 56-7.
In 2021, we beat Northwestern 56-7. The worst Northwestern team that Fitz had the greatest 3-9 football team we ever had. And we remember looking at Northwestern, even though we were 3-9, being like, at least we're not them.
Again, because of the way that I view this program, that I, for better or for worse, right or wrong, Northwesterns get beat 56-7, Nebraska's don't.
Exactly.
And that's where this hurts so much to me, is because this is that kind of a loss that it's embarrassing. It is. I'm not embarrassed to be a Nebraska fan. I'll wear my shirts, hat. I'm going
to be proud as hell driving to Columbus next
Always
Friday.
Will be. I will never give up on this program, but that was an embarrassing loss.
Can you point out Aaron's comment at 9:06?
Yes, I can, but before we do that,
Okay, go.
No, I was just gonna say what you're talking about. Just continue to be proud to be a fan. And last night, so there's a family in my oldest class, and every year since kindergarten, they've hosted a Halloween party, and it was last night. And I'm there, jeans, my Nebraska football hoodie, and a buddy of mine that I actually went to high school with, he says, tough day to wear that shirt. I was like, yeah. I said, but I'll still wear it, So, Rostovsky here at 9:06 says, bruh, which, please don't say that. You're better than that. The guy that stepped out was literally a freshman.
Freshman or not, there's no rookies when you're 7 games into the season anymore.
Guys.
Like, you're at a point where that's something that shouldn't even happen when you're a senior in high school. And I just want to point that out. I'm not saying, like, I'm not being like, F you, Aaron, for that. No, like, it's just that's how absurd it was.
Did we not also muff at least 2 kick returns?
Yeah.
I mean, again, Ed Foley was not very popular around my house yesterday. No offense, Ed. If you happen, there's no way you're going to see this, but if you did, it's the same shit. Yeah, he's a freshman. Get it. Cool. You get a little bit of a grace period, but you can't fucking do that. You can't. You know that in middle school. You cannot do it.
By the time you start watching football, you should know kickoff's going out of bounds. You let it go.
Easy for us to say, well, we're sitting here and we're not yet this, how fast the game is. And I always say people don't realize how fast the game is happening on TV.
There is an element to that, though, for as fast as the game is. That's where prior preparation, as they're saying, prior preparation beats piss poor performance. That's one of the things where it's like you really have to be able to analyze in those situations, process what's going on, and know exactly what you're supposed to do. And it's in that situation. That's what coaching is. You coach your players to know in the fog of war, the heat of battle, what they can and cannot do, to help or hurt their team.
It's visualization and playing. To make a baseball reference, when I was catching, I would run through, and I was like decently qualified to say this, and I would run through scenarios before almost every pitch. Be like, all right, runner on first. If he takes off, I would visualize how I'm going to throw the ball.
Yep.
If you're a kick returning, you need to be able to be like, this is what's going to happen. If the ball's going toward the sideline, this is what this is going to look like. If I receive it here, you're imagining what it looks like when you see the kick coverage team coming down. I forget, it was an NFL great return man. I forget who it was. He always talked about that, returning the ball that way and visualizing how he was going to score. So,
yeah, the visualization, it's like what Dennis Rodman talked about in the Last Dance documentary about rebounding, where he's talking about as that ball's coming off the rim, he's anticipating based on how it hits the rim, which way it's going. Is it going this way? Is it coming back towards him? And I mean, rebounding, that might be the most split second type of closed environment that you could get in sports.
Greg, re-highlight that Matt Foley comment, man.
Wasn't that great?
That was awesome.
Comment.
Hey, by the way, someone else made a comment that Matt Foley would have been better. Yeah, at least he's a motivational speaker. You could probably fire he's in the basement drinking coffee for 8 hours. I'm sure he'd be ready to go.
A long snapper, be living in a van down by the river.
For the benefit of those of you who are not joining us live and are listening to this just in the audio format on the favorite podcast platform of your choosing, living in Omaha, David Matney, the official realtor of the 5 Heart Podcast, says, how do we know that Ed Foley is a coach? Maybe he got swapped out for Matt Foley. And if you don't know who Matt Foley is, you're too young to be watching us.
Yeah, this is a show where we cuss and drink beer, and we're mostly a family show. But
I mean, we talk about how to help struggling couples start a family with an occasional Blue Chew ad, but we're not going to do that. It's a Sunday night, by God.
People don't know this. Haas is drinking Barton's out of that.
Oh yeah,
out there.
Yeah, out of my Yeti water bottle. Just
he puts down 2 or 3 of those a day.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, I apologize
with it.
I'm be covering you up just a little bit, but since I'm looking at the numbers here, we have a tremendous amount of people who are watching us on YouTube tonight. I just want to let you know you can help pad John Johnston's retirement, his YouTube pension, if you will, just by liking this video, subscribing to the Coronation YouTube channel, and ringing that bell for notifications. If you have not already done so, we're at 10,000. We're over 10,400 subscribers, gentlemen, on the YouTube channel, largely because a lot of people found John Johnston just
many years ago.
Not that many. It was after Minnesota. I think that was 21.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, on the field with the there is no hope, yada, yada. So if you're one of those who has yet to like this video, please do so now. And same goes for you on Facebook. Like the post over there. And X, I don't know what the hell y'all do on X, but thank you for tuning in and throwing a few. I see a few X comments from time to time. And no, Fred, that's not an invitation to take this to an NC-17 rating. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, before we get too much longer here, since we're already at hour 11, should we discuss defense?
What defense?
Yeah.
I mean,
with some talking points, I don't really have much.
All I've got to say is what I said at the beginning still. We approached Indiana the same way we approached Illinois. We tried to defend an RPO-heavy team out of quarters instead of man, and we paid the price for it. We looked just so woefully unprepared. Didn't look like we knew how to align properly, especially on, when they would like to bunch their receivers. We didn't know how to adjust to their motions. There was just the only really positive play I can think of is when Bayer kind of fought through a screen, to make a tackle. And then also when he, just found a soft spot in the pass protection and nailed Rourke for a loss. Other than that, Isaac Gifford played a pretty bad game. Deshaun Singleton kind of looked like he was lost again, just like in the Illinois game. And then Sierra Wright and Tommy Hill really didn't play great games at all. And Nash and Ty and Nash Hutmacher really kind of disappeared again. They kind of went on the milk carton. And even though Jamari Butler is fully healthy again, we're going on a pretty long stretch without him really making an impact. Like, it's really been pretty damning that he's not making an impact in what should have been, a year that he really plays at a high level. James Williams had TFL. James Williams also got mugged pretty much all game long. Should have been a lot of holding penalties. Not going to say officiating is why we lost 56-7, because that definitely ain't it.
By the way, Vince Watson I saw this line elsewhere, but it's worthy of callback. Vince Watson says the Black Shorts gave up fewer points on Saturday than the Black Shirts. And
yep.
I think I would. Here's the thing for me. If you're coming back for a 6th year, you're coming back because you're trying to set the standard, write the program, etc. You're coming back because your brother was here for the first year, Scott Frost, and then he left, and you saw the foundation crumble. If you're coming back and you're returning back to Lincoln after a 56-7 ass whooping, and you're a defensive player who holds one of those black shirts, and you're not handing it over, I think some of those senior leaders should be handing over their black shirts. And I'm not saying take them out of the starting lineup, but the black shirt's supposed to mean something, and it doesn't mean anything after a game like that.
Sure, it means that you're still a starter.
Sorry.
No, I get what you mean from a symbolic standpoint. Yeah, George Gargo, Mel 91. I really hate that I'm butchering your name. Evidently, phonics is hard.
It's okay. I'll make this very simple for you. Did you ever watch Smurfs growing up?
No.
All right, first of all, watch Smurfs. It's underrated as a kid's cartoon. Jake's going to be watching Smurfs in a few years. It's Gargamel.
Gargamel. Thank you.
Gargamel.
Gargamel 91. Cam and Princewell disappeared. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's been one of the weirdest things this year for two guys that played at borderline freshman All-American levels. Cam Lenhart, borderline last year, freshman All-American. Princewell was freshman All-American. Disappeared on the milk carton.
I just don't get it because the guys are physically really talented players and they have really good technique. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, Aaron. Yeah, Cam has barely played. He's not even out there. I mean, I don't even know. Haas, you're gonna have to come up, man. I got nothing here.
On Lenhart,
I'm grasping at straws, trying to think of anything I can say about the defense, especially anything positive. I have a million thoughts going through my head, and none of them are good. And I'm trying not to be too mean.
I honestly think that, last year we kind of had this live by the sword, die by the sword approach where it was like, hey, we're going to just go out there. We're going to play, our style of defense. We're going to play a lot of man coverage. We're going to have exotic blitz packages, overload protections. And if we get beat, we get beat. It's like if we die, we die. But it's one of those things where it's like this year we've gone completely away from that. And like, I'll just say this, like, I'm not trying to, say that I know what Tony White's thinking, but for as much fun as it seemed like he had coaching last year, and he said it was one of the funnest years that he had coaching, this year's got to kind of be miserable for him, you know, with some of these performances. There's not a lot of good to say. John Bullock had a really terrible game yesterday.
John Bullock played the worst game of his probably, well, I don't want to say his career, probably his career.
Yeah. His career as a starter or a significant contributor.
We got to that.
It's just, that was bad. Javen Wright looked like he was just guessing at gaps. It kind of seemed like everybody, once the bullets started flying, the training and preparation went out the window.
Speaking of,
Wade Farr said a little bit ago, and this is talk about special teams and a freshman stepping out on a kickoff at the 1 yard line. Money equals better players. Freshmen be damned. I mean, we're spending a lot. We didn't get Corey Barney based on our good looks and the seasonal climate in Lincoln, Nebraska. I mean, I think there's some merit to, again, whether the rules haven't changed. You play however many years of varsity football in high school, you take a kick and you accidentally step out at the one. It's the same expectation. So,
well, aside, if I had somebody ask me how I felt about our team's execution on Saturday, I'd say I was all for it.
John McKay. Wait, no.
Yeah, John McKay. Or was it John Robinson?
No, it's John McKay. First coach of the Buccaneers, was a legend at USC. He had some great sound bites. One of my favorite ever is after one of their losses, he was like, well, we didn't block, but we made up for it by not tackling. Yeah.
All right, couple things because we have some another super chat and gifting some memberships. But Mike says $10 this time. John is going to be having that double ply TP pretty soon. Do you guys feel that a decent part of problems stems from still having Frost players? It seems as if Dylan and our merger players have different attitude than our older guys.
No, I don't. I feel like those guys are hungry to be a part of a winner finally. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a culture problem. I really don't. I think it's we got out schemed. We got out schemed and we got physically beat up.
X's and O's, Jimmy, more so than Jimmy's and Joe's.
Yeah.
In this case.
Again, a lot of, I know it's kind of, chic sometimes to be like, well, it's the Jimmys and the Joes, not the X's and O's. They work together. They work in conjunction with one another. And basically what that comes down to is you can have the Jimmys and the Joes, and if you don't put them in good positions to succeed, this is what happens. I thought we have a really bad offensive scheme. We have, the defensive scheme was not the right call for the kind of opponent we were playing. And so we put good players, good athletes into bad positions. So that's my stance on it.
Mini Hunt, gracious and generous enough to gift 5 Coronation memberships. So if you received a Coronation membership, make sure you thank Minnie tonight. We thank you, Minnie, as well. And let's see, I still have 40 plus comments that are starred. Should we start getting to some of these, and I'll weed them out as I can?
Well, we should try.
All right. Let's see. Brian said early on, too busy with the dig Saturday to catch anything after early second quarter. Only have to survive the howl of the butthurt of the collective Husker fan base. Yeah, that's why we do this. I mean, this is, at the end of the day, we're exercising the demons of the Indiana game. This is cathartic, we hope, to a certain level, and there's going to be more because John will have Monday night therapy tomorrow night, and Husker happy hour. If Andy's, I think, going to be doing that on too. So, yeah, when we talk about it, we bitch about it, we move on, right, guys?
Yep, that's the only thing you can do.
Let's see. Melissa's in a mood tonight. Says, I really don't think we'll win 6 games.
A year ago, just about a year ago right now, we were sitting at 5-3, and there were some conversations about, hey, let's go try to see if we can win the West in the month of November. And we went 0-4. So, Melissa, the same thoughts crossed my mind this year. I'm like, it'd be a damn shame if we go 0-6 to finish the year after a 5-1 start.
804. This one was for free. Mike said, I don't understand how we can go through rebuilding for 15 years and others rebuilding in a tenth of the time, but glad to see we flipped a commitment. We did a 4-star offensive tackle from the 2025 class today. So
Yes, we did.
I saw that.
I don't know how you do that after a game like yesterday, unless
it's probably strategic.
And poor Marcus says, I can't believe I traveled and paid to watch that disaster left in the third quarter.
Marcus, hats off, my friend.
Greg is on Facebook and said, early spread, Ohio State -24.
Yeah, I saw that, 25.5.
It's about as high as I think they can set it, honestly.
And I know, I think in his postgame comments, Matt Rhule said that, they went for it on 4th down. A lot of it might have skewed some of the statistics a little bit there. But David Matney says, why on earth in year 2 can we not find a kicker? I mean, we have a couple. One of them's injured. The other one is inconsistent. But we might have – and we have another kicker. We recruited a guy, Nico, from, I think, New Jersey or something. Like, he hasn't seen the field. One game's not going to burn a red shirt. Let's get him out there, right?
Who knows at this point, man? I think at this point, kicker feels pretty low down on the list of problems.
It's not even just kicking either. It's long snapping. It's blocking. It's the full
field. Yes, it's the overall administration overseeing the field goal.
Yeah. Let's see here. I'm just looking at some of the newer ones here, so I apologize. Trying to keep it all moving along. I'm going to come back to that. Paul Dalen, if you're still here, that's an 804 comment that needs to be brought up closer to the end. Angela, no offense, Angela, we're going to move on from that one. Minnie says, we were on par with Northern Illinois yesterday. Northwestern looked better than us. How does that happen?
Transitive property is hard to tell.
Yeah. I'm going to say this because I think, and I'm going to try to do it by wiping out a lot of the comments here, but I said this in the Slack, to the Coronation Slack last night. I said we peaked against Colorado.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, we have been regressing ever since the second week of the season.
It should have been pretty damning against Northern Iowa when our receivers couldn't gain separation.
Yeah.
And to quote Forrest Gump, that's all I have to say about that.
Again, transitive properties. If we, realistically, Colorado was 28-10. If we feel like that should have been more of like a 42-10 game, does that mean that Indiana beats Colorado 96-10? No, it doesn't. Every game's its own microcosm.
Every game's in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
David Matney asked earlier, why keep Dylan in the game when the game was clearly over and run the risk of him getting hurt? Is that just
like that might have been a message from the staff to get in there and keep keep plugging away. Bruce Arians has a great book, The Quarterback Whisperer, where he talks about when he was Peyton Manning's quarterback coach during Peyton's rookie year with the Colts. And they were getting their ass kicked in some brutal weather up in New England. And Peyton asked to come out, and he was like, no, get your ass back in there. Get your ass back in there. This is the best learning opportunity that you're going to have to face these kind of conditions, to face this kind of opponent in this situation. And I think he ended up taking them down the field. They started running some tempo, and he felt like he had a grasp on things because people forget Peyton Manning threw 28 interceptions as a rookie.
I was going to ask, I thought it was 29, 28. Yeah.
Yep.
I was going to say, how many picks did he throw his rookie year?
Because he didn't know what open was in the NFL. And Arians had to tell him 6 inches is open in the NFL, Yep. So this is a case of, I think that you really need to just put people in those situations where they have to learn to overcome adversity, and a freshman quarterback needs to get their mind calloused to these sorts of things.
Guys, I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing. I'm not sure if this is real, how this works. Is this $150 super chat?
From Timmy Chang.
I have no idea, but it says, it's unfortunate I saw John in his bathroom again. Why Huskers go down so bad? Answer is simple: coaching. By the way, Greg's volume needs to be turned down. Haas and Jake volume need to be turned up. So I think it's because I have a microphone.
Yeah, I technically have one too. That
somewhere. You never hooked it up, I don't think. And these guys are
we're
working with internal.
We're unpaid volunteers.
I could yell.
I feel like I'm yelling all the time on this podcast. I feel like I'm like Mel Kiper going, Todd.
But if that's really 150, whatever it is, I'm messaging John to be like, that's going here.
By the time it gets to me, it'll be $1.50, but
that's fine. I'll ask John, be like, we had a really intriguing super chat, and we need to know exactly how much is being portioned out to the talent.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Tony asked Leotardo, where's my money?
Whether it's $1 or whatever that was.
Well, 150 Japanese yen is only worth, I think, about $1. Oh, Aaron says Taiwanese dollars, 469. I don't know.
Sweet. We'll just give that to Jake. You can put it towards a can of chew.
There we go. But today's day and age will give me about 1/6 of the way in there. So
Fred says it's better than Fleck Bucks, but not as good as Greg Gems.
What about Farron's fun money?
Oh, God. Let's see here. Angela Matting wants to know which team is our 6th win. I guess if you're looking at the calendar, the best opportunity is probably UCLA.
Yeah, UCLA. That USC game maybe isn't as scary as people think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe steal one against Iowa.
Yeah. That'll come down to being a fourth quarter game, just like it always does.
Yeah.
I think one of my bigger disappointments, and I think Husker fan Jerry is going to touch on this as well, or we'll get to it, is we're either a first half team or a second half team. And yesterday we were a no half team.
Yes.
But Husker fan Jerry says defense, effort, offense, scheme, special teams, fundamentals. I guess he talked about like things that needed to be addressed. Biggest question mark for me is, how do you come out so flat-footed after a bye?
That's what I was saying yesterday. That's the sole reason why you see other teams like Indiana come out after a bye and they look fresh. They have a good plan. They're ready to go. Then we've always struggled out of byes where we come out of there and we look like we spent the past 2 weeks doing nothing but sitting around eating Cheetos and, watching, TV. I don't know.
I'm curious to hear you guys' take on this one from Fred. My estimation of Rhule as a man just plummeted.
That's a Sopranos reference.
Oh, okay.
After I said something earlier, when I said fucking nauseating.
Gotcha.
Is
the whole? I mean, is the rest of this a Sopranos quote, or is it
the entire thing?
Okay.
Swap out Rhule for. I'll just say what it is in real life. My estimation of John Sacramone as a man just plummeted. If they got him to cry, what else can they make him do?
I see.
Thanks, Fred.
Then maybe here's a better one for Fred that we can address from the football standpoint. If Rhule can't evaluate staff, Foley or Sat, and be willing to make changes, then that's a problem.
Foley, Satterfield, McGuire, and Barthel all have to go.
Yeah, and I second that. These aren't children. These guys have big boy jobs where they're making a lot of money.
They're in the game. They know. Like Barthel, it's absurd how bad the running backs are under Barthel.
Yeah.
It's just I really wasn't sold on him last year. I was willing to give it another shot. McGuire, I felt like, oh, well, look what he did with some of the young receivers last year out of necessity. Nobody's getting developed. Nobody looks technically proficient. Nobody looks like they're really good at their craft. It's just a lot of, lazy routes and drop passes.
That's a tremendous fourth addition to the show. That desperately seeking escape. Highlander Gun wants to know when I'm going to dance. I'll be like, I tell you what, if we beat Ohio State, I'm going to dance. If we beat Ohio State. Otherwise, let's get bowl eligible, and then I'll dance. All right, let's see. What else we got here? We are working through the starred comments. I just want you guys to know. Minnie said earlier, wide receivers should be making more of an impact. Don't know if it's coaching or what, but something has to change.
Both coaching and talent.
Yeah. Which brings up, David Matney's thing is we had more than enough talent, so it's coaching. It's hand in hand. Where do we have the most advantage, I guess, is my question. Sorry.
Well, I would say along the defensive line. But if we're going to talk back to receivers, Banks and Nair are not wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 guys. They're not fast enough in college football to be those guys to stretch the field. At least not the way we're using them right now.
Which is odd because they're really good track guys.
Yep.
They just don't have football speed.
No.
So let me ask, let's say whole team, what has the advantage? The players? If we're, I always go back to the 10 Commandments. Charlton Heston, Yul Brynner. I think it's a fantastic movie. I watch it every year. But, you have Ramses. He's putting the scales. And he's like, we've got the Hebrew slaves do this. And then you take one brick. And he's like, you can't make, dead slaves don't make, or dead Hebrews, whatever it is, don't make bricks. And anyway, horrible analogy, but where is the advantage? Is the advantage in the players? Like, are the players being undercoached or coached poorly, or do we not have the proper talent for the coaching staff? I feel like
I think that the crux of the blame lies on the coaching, the preparation.
Okay. Yes. The schemes don't fit the personnel now.
No, it's been tailored too much to Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, and by the way, elephant in the room, I think coaching staff may be babying Dylan a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we need to take the training wheels off. And do I think he's a generational talent? Absolutely, I do. But I don't think he's been able to really show it at this point.
I think that's a big reason why Rhule kept him in there late. He had to learn. Sometimes you got to learn what it's like to get your ass kicked.
Yeah. And because he never really has, I don't think. I don't know. I didn't grow up with him. I don't know. But, the advantages he had being Dominic Raiola's son, and probably most of his high school career, everyone telling him how great he was all the time. And I don't know how much adversity this kid has really faced.
Well, while we're talking about Dylan, David Matney did ask earlier, what are the odds we lose Dylan to the portal if things don't improve?
I don't think he's going to leave for the portal personally.
No,
stick it out.
I think he'll stick it out.
Okay. We got talking earlier about the dual threatness and how, I think somebody said in a highlighted comment earlier about we're pretty one-dimensional because Dylan doesn't pull the ball down and run. But Gargamel says TJ Lateef coming in should be a dual threat quarterback.
I don't think he ever makes it to Lincoln.
I agree with. I was just going to say Haas. He's been shaky, I think, with his commitment.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to see him at Nebraska.
Mr. Matney also said, when do fans get the opportunity to hit the transfer portal?
Anytime you want. It's
You
just
transfer whenever you want.
You can swallow your pride.
I'll say this, though. Justin Rogers says, we won't. That's why the boosters and admin take advantage of the actual fans. There's probably some truth to that as well. Let's see here. This is an important question that I've had starred for over an hour. Husker Nation 1 says, I wanted to see Carter Nelson. Where was that kid yesterday? We could have used.
Yeah, he got in late.
Too
Game
late.
was over.
Yeah, game was over.
But too late, right? I mean, or do we not want to see if he can make an impact? I mean, he came in highly touted. We were talking on this show about he
needs more touches. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the approach is that the staff's taken with who to get touches for. It's a very little league approach, just trying to get touches for the sake of touches to, Barney, for instance, the way we use him. I'd like to see us use a little less gadget and a little bit more, as a receiver, as a weapon. What were you saying, Jake?
No, it's what it feels like. I was just agreeing with you. I know I forget that the audio with the overlaying and because it feels like we're having just a conversation, like three of us are just chopping it up with like the comments. I forget that you have to actually wait turns to speak because I just, as you're going, I just speak. And no, I agree. It feels like you're just kind of, let's see. Ramir hasn't gotten enough touches today, so let's get him in there and why? I don't think that's actually what's happening, but that's what it feels like as a fan.
Yeah, that's what it feels like too, where it's just, hey, get everybody involved.
By the way, Greg, there's a really good comment. Because we're already working through comments and we could just start, or if we want to talk about it now, it's 9:35 Pitt talking about Raiola. We can talk about it now if we want to.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I agree with this. This is 100% what we've seen now for 2 games at least. Very busy feet. He looks very paranoid in the pocket, and he's kind of bouncing around when he doesn't need to. We're early in the season. He was just standing back there, real confident, and ripping the ball around the field.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know what he needs. Size 17, that's a big cleat. I don't know if he needs a size 17. But it's what I've observed as well. And a guy like that, when you're that talented and you're that good, there shouldn't be much self-doubt.
No.
I'd love Dylan to see any bit of this show where like one of your biggest fans, man. I think you have you have generational talent, but just be confident. Make that mic ID and stand in there and have that big imposing presence that you do have.
I want to ask this question as we start to move on to next week, Ohio State. Living in Omaha, David Matney says, what does progress look like against the Buckeyes? Now, they were off this week, and their last game was a loss at Autzen Stadium to Oregon. They're going to become, obviously they're going to be at home, and they're not coming in anywhere, but they're going to be fired up, ready to defend the home field and kind of stake their claim as a top 4 team in the country. So is progress just not by losing them more than 49 points? I mean,
this isn't a game you measure progress in. We're not there yet.
Okay.
It's kind of like, when you see it.
Yep.
If we see progress, we'll know. I don't know. I can't put a number value on it. I guess it'd be losing by less than 21 would be pretty good. I mean, considering what just happened.
Covering the spread.
Which is 24. So
24.
Yeah, beating the spread.
Wade said earlier, you guys need a 2-hour show just to learn to lie to your family that you're Hornets, not really YouTube fans that want your attention.
Tell John to start paying us, Wade.
I think Wade left. Husker Nation 1 says, I think if we beat UCLA, we'll squeak out one more, but if we lose to UCLA, we lose out.
That's kind of where I'm at, too.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think I said this yesterday. I feel like that UCLA game's kind of going to be the circle the wagons game, much like Maryland was last year. And it's going to be the you got to find a way game. You got to find a way.
Joel Tilson with something hopeful, something positive. We're still 5-2, which is better than Iowa and USC.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
And one that I have starred from the very beginning because I'm surprised we haven't talked about it. And I don't know if you all are just are superstitious or just a little stitious, but Paul Dalen said the unicameral needs to ban surrender whites.
I like the old whites. Needs a red helmet.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what that looked like.
Needs a red helmet.
Red socks too.
Yep.
All right.
Well,
let's. Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, you want us to give us our Ohio State predictions?
I'm going to remind you. By the way, at the beginning of the season, I was the only one who said Nebraska would beat Ohio State. In fact, my bold prediction was that we would face Ohio State twice and beat them at least one time.
Okay.
Haas, you have Ohio State winning 40-37. Jake, you have Ohio State winning 38-20. What changes would you like to make, if any?
I don't make changes. I always just go with my original.
That is true. I have yet to scribble out one of Jake's scores and update it.
I know. I don't make changes. 38-20, I'd feel pretty good about, honestly, because I feel like that would show some pretty real solid progress. I mean, yeah, realistically, do I think it'll probably be a lot worse than that? Yes. But I'm going to stick with it. Be hopeful. We'll beat the spread. Let's hope for like 2 pick sixes or something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it. Not because I think we're gonna score 37, but it's just one of those things where it's a game where I'm gonna say that we're gonna at least cover the spread, and that's good enough for me.
Well, in that case, my prediction for next Saturday at the Horseshoe, which, by the way, you two are going to be at that game. So that's a whole other conversation as far as when we're going to do the show. I'm assuming next Sunday night. Hopefully you all are back.
Might have to push to Monday night.
Okay, so we'll figure that out. Next, and so we don't know if next week's show is going to be live or not, because if it's Monday night, that can conflict with Monday Night Therapy. We'll figure that out. That is a great post-production meeting text. Anyway, I'm going to give my prediction on Thursday night. I'm going to sit and stew on this one for a couple more days and try to get my mind right. Ken E for $10 says, what the heck happened to the use of different formations and motion we saw earlier in the season?
Oh, it's a bland and boring offense.
That's a great question, Ken.
You're asking the wrong people.
I do not. I'm not the coordinator. That is an amazing observation.
I would love it if our media that attends these press conferences would actually ask questions like this instead of asking general, comments, your questions like, oh, what's the culture like? No, why don't you actually ask real stuff about the football game, about the sport of football, not just throwaway lines. Looking at you, Omaha World Herald.
I mean, it seems for as long as a lot of them have been covering the sport, it seems they should be.
None of them know much about it.
Right, but they should. I mean, look, I'm not a genius.
It's your livelihood. You should know about it.
I don't say the story, Joe, and this show's gone long enough, so I'm not trying to. But I at least asked Bill Callahan a hard-hitting question about in-state recruits years back when I met him on one of those Cornhusker caravan, tour of the state things. Somewhere there's a picture of it. I'd have to dig it out.
It's too technical for you, Greg.
No, he basically said, yeah, Coach Beach. He's like, yeah, we always look for the top talent that we can find. But the only reason I asked, honestly, is there was a kid from Rushville, Nebraska, who had signed on signing day and signed at Iowa State. I was like, well, why are we losing kids to Iowa State? And I don't think he did anything. So, I'm not saying that my question was out of line. I'm just saying I thought it was a fair question to challenge the head coach a little bit.
I think it's a very fair question.
But we don't have that. We ask a lot of softballs, and it'd be great for our main media, our heritage media, if you will, to know more. And I don't mean this as any disrespect to you guys. You guys are smart. Our comment section is very smart. That's why they ask us these hard-hitting questions. But why not ask Marcus Satterfield or Matt Rhule what happened to different formations and motion pre-snap motion that we saw earlier in the season. Why did we get away from that? You look, we were 3-0, we were 3-1, 4-1, 5-1. We were doing some of these things. Now we stopped doing some of that. We become too predictable, too vanilla. Why? There's
Make them
no
answer the question. Make them answer the question. They can't just give a coach speak.
And you know what? Most coaches would be happy to answer it too.
Yeah.
If you ask a coach a question about actual football, they will answer it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was kind of talking over you there, Chief.
Me? No.
No, I'm good.
Show's gone on pretty long, but Fred. Last thing, Fred. What happened to the fullback? Again, I'd like to see the splits. I'd like to see the average yards per rush with a fullback versus not a fullback. From what I remember, seems like we have a hell of a lot more success when there's a fullback in there than when there's. And by the way, Liebentritt, guy I was a little tough on before the season in our preseason predictions. That guy's gotten a lot better. He looks pretty damn good when he's in there.
Well, let's end it with something positive, like the evolution, the continued growth, and of Liebentritt. So that'll do it for this episode of Coronation's Overreaction. Stay tuned. We will play next week by ear, and we wish these two guys safe travels, bring home a winner. I always say, like, if my sister was going to a Cardinals game or something, I say come home a winner or don't come home at all. So, I challenge you.
We're gonna burn the boats.
That is it again for Coronation Overreaction. We appreciate all of you filling up the chatter fields tonight. Just right now here, almost 2 hours in, almost 700 people are here with us. So makes it a lot of fun. And because of the insanity of some of your questions, a little long, but that's okay. But for my good friend, fellow Husker fan, a longtime podcast buddy, Haas Reuter, for every game, Jake. I can never point in the right direction. I apologize to you, Jake. I'm Greg Mahachko. This is Coronation's Overreaction. Like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, all that good stuff. We'll see you next week. Go Big Red. Haas.
Find a way.
Jake.
Love and appreciate everybody that joins us. To piggyback off Haas, find a way.
Yeah.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.
And John, you owe us somewhere between $7 and $33 a piece out of somewhere.
Sounds good.